So it's a whole bunch of people talking about this pastor's wife who wore this shirt, this clothes, and I'm like, I don't really see nothing wrong with the way that what she's wearing, but that's because I came to God not through a church. I came to God with the relationship, trying to build a relationship with him, me and him, reading his word and going to him with whatever else. I never, I feel like obviously growing up in America, in the United States, is some things that you just get brainwashed with that kind of, you weren't really in the church, but you still get brainwashed with church things. But I think that's the difference with me. I was not raised in the church, so I didn't really have to deal with the same sort of things that people did in the church. So, for example, when it comes to modesty, I feel like for years the church has said that, women come to the church dressed in a certain way because they're looking for men and blah, 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 blah. When in reality, I think, clothes do relate to modesty. But when you think back to if Eve wouldn't have never even ate the fruit off the tree, we would be walking here butt naked. And so I think the message has always been to not lust after one another, regardless of what somebody is wearing. You were never supposed to be lustful. And then when it comes to the church, I think it's a battle of internal things versus external. Everybody can look on the outside like they're a godly woman, or they can look on the outside like they're not a godly woman, or they're an immodest woman. But obviously, at the end of the day, it matters what's on the inside. Somebody can dress like a certain way and not be what you're labeling that them to be at all, and then somebody could dress a certain modest way and be the fully opposite of what you guys are labeling them to be. I remember Dolly Parton saying something like that, like parents judged her growing up because she used to wear makeup and she looked like what they would call a whore, but their daughters were actually the ones being actual whores while not wearing makeup, but because they didn't have the look, they got to not be labeled that. And that's what it goes to for me when I look at this wife being, made fun of for the way she dressed. I think the Bible teaches men not to lust after women regardless of what they wear, and I think the church has focused more on vilifying women for what they wear more so than vilifying men for lusting after them regardless of what they wear, whether they're fully covered or not. And that's what we need to really focus on, not necessarily that the women are being tempted, because if we were all walking around naked, God would still, I would believe, have the commandment or have the law that you should not be lusting after another person or another woman, or especially a married woman. And so if God knows her heart, and he does know truthfully that she did want attention, then that's what it was. But for me, I'm thinking as a woman, if I am a married woman and I wear a dress like that, I'm wearing the dress for myself and for my husband. Whoever else gets the residuals of that, that's their problem. They shouldn't be lusting after a married woman. If I say that I wore this dress for me and my husband, then I wore this dress for me and my husband, and God knows if that's true or if that's not true. But the world can say very much that she's looking for attention. She has a husband. Why would she be looking for attention? She has the attention. So, I just see like the fault in what a lot of people are saying. And then especially all these people who aren't even church people, who kind of denounce the church, but they're coming and being like, oh, this girl, she's an abomination. Like, you don't even believe in the church. So you're going to go and take on church, like commandments, church identity. I don't know what, like, church, what do I want to say? Like, you're going to take on ideology that are moved forward by the church as a way to denounce the church. Because I remember when I first came to reading the Bible, I had a parent that was basically trying to say that what does the Bible say about idleness, and what does the Bible say about this, things that they could go and read by themselves and see that the Bible does not really say what they think it said. They just have been told that by somebody else who was told that by somebody else who was told that, and they never read it by themselves. So they've been for the past years perpetuating something that was never meant to be just because somebody told them that's what it was. I don't necessarily ever think that that's what it was meant to be. I don't ever think that women were not allowed to show their shoulders or their midriffs or a certain length of skirt in the church. I don't think that ever related to or correlated with being a whore, but a lot of people have. While it's people in church fully covered that have lived that lifestyle and who have did that. And I think it's because those people have, and whether they're still living that lifestyle or not, I think I see so many women who have, like, had such a wild child past that they go from one extreme to the next. And that's what the Bible talks about. Beware of going from one extreme to the next, because they were so wild that now they think, them being like extremely prudent is gonna, wipe out their past and make them forgive and for whatever they done, that we wouldn't know because we weren't in their shoes. So that's what I think about the lady wearing a thing. I thought she had a piece of new cloth covering it. If I don't see a nipple, I don't see a vagina, I don't see a booty crack or hole, I don't think that somebody's being immodest. Like my mom was just talking about some girl was walking around with booty shorts. Like, is her booty hanging out? If her booty not hanging out, I can't necessarily call them booty shorts. I get that they end right under their butt. I've wore shorts like that, end right under my butt. I wouldn't call them booty shorts because I'm not comfortable with showing my booty. So even if my shorts are short, you seeing legs. If my legs is enough to get you that freaking turned on, you need to go work on your relationship with God and making sure you don't lust after people's legs and after people's shoulders and after people's belly buttons and stomachs, because that's getting very weird at this point. I don't think it has ever supposed to get to this point where people are, restricted in that way, especially if you look at the beginning. Obviously, we're walking around naked, and he wants us to be modest. Modest has more to do with, less to do with clothes you wear and more to do with internal things that you're practicing. And some external things are, do you practice discretion? Do you tell everybody your business? Do you go from house to house spreading everybody else's business? When somebody gives you a compliment, are you humble? Or are you like, oh, I know, yeah, I'm that B, I'm that N. Those are examples of being modest, that goes beyond wearing clothes and what somebody is wearing. So, I think we've gotten so used to judging people on the outside, and God has clearly said, practice discernment, which is meaning that you have to judge things that aren't really seen. So judge them from the conversations that they're having. That'll show you what they really are into or what they really believe, not what clothes they wear. So yeah, that's the main thing that annoys me about what I'm seeing right now, is the people who aren't even church going people who would want to see the church fall still judging her by church ideologies. Like, I would assume someone like them would just be like, oh, they're trying to uphold church things while not even really believing in the church. So they're upholding that she's a bad person for wearing that stuff, and y'all don't even go to church. So why would you think the things that church say are true? And that's the same thing for me. I'm not a church going person. When I began reading the Bible, I had somebody, like I keep mentioning, badgering over me, trying to tell me what I should be doing when I was based on what they were told that they should be doing, when I was building a relationship with God and letting him show me what I should be doing. That goes back to Jesus and the Pharisees. God was showing Jesus and the individual prophets what to do, while the people who represented religion were based on traditions. It's outlined just like that in the Bible, that we're focused on our traditions, we're focused on what we've been told more than what he wants us to do new. God is going to do a new thing. Not saying that people need to be walking around showing every single thing. Yeah, have some discretion, but to fully judge people who are covered still, like, she seemed covered to me. Like I said, I didn't see nothing explicit. I see a grown woman, an overly grown woman in her 50s and 60s, allowed to wear whatever she wants. I remember I was in high school going to prom, and it was a girl who was wearing a dress like that. I would not think that a high school student should wear a dress like that. I wouldn't think a teen should wear a dress like that. Maybe some younger women in their mid-20s probably shouldn't even wear a dress like that. I don't know. But an overgrown 50-year-old woman, I feel like she has lived her life and known enough to be on her grown woman thing. She's not sure. I didn't see the back of the dress, so I don't know what the back of the dress looked like. But from the front, I don't see nothing too out of the ordinary besides you can see her skin, you can see her arms, you can see her stomach. You can't even see, like, are you. She's immodest because she has a body. She didn't show any vagina. She didn't show a booty cheek. From what I know, like I said, I didn't see the back. So I don't know. I just like, people. Well, that's what I was gonna say. I had people coming from me on all sides telling me that I need to go to church, and then I would go read the Bible from where I left off at, and the Bible told me, hey, your church leaders, your pastors, these people have been misled. So basically the Bible was telling me don't go to church, while the people around me were telling me do go to church, and I'm over here like, y'all don't even read the Bible, and y'all trying to tell me how to live, or how to live according to the Bible, and y'all trying to judge me by Bible ideologies that y'all ain't even read. Like, how are you gonna make up something? I mean, I know it's made up. You don't know it's made up. You think that what people have told you for the past 40, 50, 60 years have been true, and it just has not, because in all that time you chose to follow other people instead of opening the book for yourself and going on your own path and walking that straight and narrow yourself. So you have a misconstrued idea of what it really means and what he's really saying. I don't really think God has ever said what a lot of the church people believe even to this day. Because I know so many church women that are going to church, but they'll go and they are like, they are there for men, and they are there for, to be a pastor's wife and things like that. So they're running to church every Sunday. Their kids was raised in the church, everybody raised in the church. But they go on vacation, they're a whole different person in that other country, in that other state. They doing something totally different you wouldn't even know, but God knows at the end of the day. And so that's all that matters, that God knows your heart. That lady could be showing her whatever, and she really is for her husband and always been for her. I wouldn't, God knows. So I'm not going to judge that lady because of her outside appearance. Because I personally, like I said, don't see nothing wrong with it. I don't see, like, I'm going to keep saying it. I did not see all those things that I think would really make somebody immodest. Showing an arm, not immodest. Showing a leg, I don't think that's immodest. Showing your sides, your stomach, even your belly button, I don't think that's immodest. Do I think little kids under 18 should be doing it? No, I think that's where things have gotten very. And even, like I said, I don't believe that the age of this world, the adult age that the world said adult is an adult in this world, is what God believes, but we have to go with it. So like I said, I don't believe people 18 and under in high school or whatever should be wearing these types of dresses, but that grown woman has her choice, so she should not be over here being vilified like this because she wore some clothes, while y'all over here, these same people, y'all doing who knows what, but y'all just basically being harder on her because y'all think people in the church are held by a different standard. No, we're all held by the same standard, whether you go to church or not. You're still going to be held by the same standard, and find the true standard. Don't make it the standard based on what people have told and rumored and said for the past thousands of years at this point. Because like Jesus, for thousands of years, they told him he couldn't eat, or even David, they told him he couldn't eat the shewbread, and he ate the shewbread. Thousands of years, they said you wasn't supposed to do this on the Sabbath day. He did it on the Sabbath day. Not saying that we're supposed to be running around disobedient, but when you have a real, true relationship with God, things don't look like how they're supposed to look. Because it's literally a spiritual thing of external plus internal. People are going to see somebody thinking they're doing something against God, and they're going to say, oh, God doesn't like that person, whether they even believe in God or not. They're going to say, based on what they have been brainwashed with. Like I was saying earlier, we all have, whether we was raised in the church or not, have a level of brainwashing that came from the church, whether it was people truly in it or not. And I believe the people who brainwashed us about the church weren't never truly in the church, but their role was to get as many people skeptical about the church as they can. Like I said, like I never said, but I'm going to say now, I grew up watching Law and Order, and a lot of what I remember reading or hearing about the Bible and these stories were how people would kind of go crazy. That was the sort of messaging that I kept getting when I would hear about people who truly believed in the Bible, according to whoever was narrating these episodes, that people would take it too far and think that they had a purpose to do this, and their purpose was to kill somebody, and their purpose was to rape somebody or to have kids by younger women that aren't even kids or adults themselves, just really weird things. And that does go on in the church. And that's what I think God wants us more so focusing on than what somebody is wearing, is what these pastors are saying and hiding behind. We're so focused on the women that we're not focused on the men coming up dressed nice every day, but they're preying on the little girls in the congregation and things like that. So I'm like, that's what, and we know that, but we'll still perpetuate weird things. And obviously two things can be true at once, but yeah, I'm like, we focus so much on the women and what the women were wearing instead of telling men, hey, you practice, not lusting after people, whether, like I said, they're showing skin or not, because I'm sure a lot of those little girls that are coming out saying that they were preyed on as young girls were not showing any skin. And then you have the adult women coming to church, like I said, trying to get men, but the men judging them because they're like, oh, they're trying to get a man. Huh? Weird. Like, I think that not me, but I'm saying I'm putting myself in these women's shoes. Like, I'm thinking that I'm doing the right thing by coming to church. Whether, church is to get a relationship with God, but also it's a social place. So I'm coming to church thinking that this is the area to socialize with a certain caliber of man, and it's not. By far, it's not. Those same men that are judging you by what you have on that are being weird behind the scenes. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say. I grew up in the household too. My mom always judging women about what they have on and what they're wearing. Not a church-going lady. I remember, growing up, and if I was just like down in the house, seeming depressed or whatever, she'd be like, you need to go to church. If I had something to say back to her, you need to go to church, because I wasn't honoring my mother and father, apparently. But as I grew older and I tried to share the truth of the Bible, what I was learning, that things that I never heard, because you hear things like that all the time: don't be idle, honor your mother and father, don't dress a certain way, don't do this, don't do that. But all the stuff that I was reading is stuff that I never had heard, and I was inclined to believe that a lot of people never had heard either. But when I came and shared these things with them, they got an attitude with me. They wanted to argue with me. And like I said, I always reference a little show that my little sister watched, which was called Miraculous Ladybug. If you ain't healed yourself internally of those little small things, you're going to be susceptible of those principalities jumping on you and using you for whatever they want to use you for, whether it's to bring down another woman, bring down another whoever, make somebody feel bad and not fully go into their purpose, whatever, because you never addressed your insecurities and you never addressed whatever you had going on. Like I said, I was sharing the Bible. I remember sharing something about how they corrupt you with gifts. Like, one of the things the Bible was saying, like, don't take gifts, because that's basically used to get your guard down. And I had to have a full argument with somebody. I wasn't trying to argue. I was confused on why they had got upset at me sharing that. They were like, oh, I'm not trying to hear that, blah, blah, blah. And I was talking about me at a job that I was just leaving, where I thought people were cool with me, and I realized, they weren't, but they're giving gifts and they're acting like they're and that's all I was talking about. But I had somebody upset with me because I was having a real relationship with God, and I realized he didn't want me working with people who were just gonna give me gifts but not treat me how I was supposed to be treated. And that's what I started after that argument. That's what I started to feel with family too. I was like, I don't want to celebrate these holidays, birthdays, or whatever, where people are giving me gifts on my birthday and things like that. But then every other day of the year, they're treating me like shit, and they're arguing with me, and they're making me feel bad for not following what they had followed, not following what they had been taught. You had ample time. You 50, 60 years old, you had ample time to do the same thing that I'm doing, and then you got mad at me because I took my time to do that. And you took your time to keep working for people who didn't want you there. Took your time to keep doing things that was going against yourself and your family, but you were thinking, oh, at least I got food on my table and whatever, a roof over my head, but your family is in dissension. Your kids don't like you. Your kids are being led astray still and used still. Years later, you haven't been able to sit there and give them something that they can hold on to and get them prepared for the future, monetarily, financially, emotionally especially. Help them to grow up emotionally and learn how to draw the right conclusions. Peace.